and welcome to episode 80 of the Clean Energy Show. I'm Brian Stockton.
And I'm James Whittingham. This week on the show, Toyota decides not to transition to EVs because they don't feel like it. General Motors says, don't be caught dead parking within 50 feet of our Chevy Bolt. And Tesla reluctantly agrees to honor signed contracts for solar roof after judge explains what a signed contract is. All that and more on this edition of the Clean Energy Show. So, Brian, I took a trip to Saskatoon. My wife, bless her head, needs dental work in the five-figure range.
Yeah, that's an expensive tooth.
She needs a lot of work. The funny thing is she flosses constantly. Like if I go to the bed behind me now, there'll be floss in the bed. And I never floss, and I hardly have any tooth problems whatsoever. So we took her to the dental college up in Saskatoon. And where the kids gathered around to look in her mouth, and I don't know, they came up with a solution. But I stopped by the Tesla Supercharger while I was up there. They're getting the Tesla Supercharger put in, and what's different about them now is that they have 2 or 3 Flow branded chargers alongside them. And apparently that's happening in the States too because of the grants that they're getting for, if you can't get your grants from the government, from the federal governments in Canada or the U.S. now, unless you're putting in things that work with all cars. So that's what do you think about that? I think that's pretty cool. I mean, one-stop shopping, as it were.
Yeah, no, if you're going to put up chargers, might as well put up as many as you can, the different brands, sure.
So I see from the script you're taking an EV road trip in the fall of a pandemic?
At the end of the month, going to take a little EV road trip to Calgary, which I know is your favorite destination to think of when you're planning your EV road trips in terms of chargers and range and stuff, because it's like an 8-hour drive, which you like to do in a day. However, I don't like to do that much in a day. So we're actually going to go to Lethbridge first and stay overnight, and then
Who
a couple
does
hours
that?
to Calgary.
What kind of an old man stops in Lethbridge on the way to Calgary? Honest to God.
Yeah. It's a long story, but, change of scenery, something different. And then on the way back, we're going to stop at the Cypress Hills. But I wanted to mention it just because it's an EV road trip, but also, too, we booked at this interesting hotel in Calgary when we get there that is a former oil and gas headquarters building that's been converted into a hotel. So,
but you wouldn't stop anywhere that didn't have an EV charger built into the hotel, so does it?
It doesn't say on the website, but I'm assuming it's a brand new refurbished hotel, so I'm assuming there's EV chargers there.
That's a pretty stark, bold assumption, Mr. Stockton.
Yeah, I mean there's superchargers around if we need one, so it shouldn't be a problem. But yeah, I wanted to mention that, and then in a couple of weeks I'll be able to report back on what that was like.
Okay, why are you stopping in Cypress Hills? That's where is there a hotel there?
Yeah, there's a nice sort of provincial park and a hotel there, kind of in nature there. So it was a nice place to stop. That's kind of halfway, so that we don't have to do the whole 8 hours in one day.
That's a luxury I cannot afford.
Yeah, it is. A luxurious trip for sure, but we can kind of take an extra long weekend to do it.
But when you went to Calgary in your first EV, or to Vancouver in your first EV trip, you did something crazy. You went 12 hours?
Yeah, no, I did 1,100 kilometers on the first day, but that's when I realized, I don't want to do that again. That's, I kind of wanted to see if it was possible to do that much in a day in an EV, and it totally was possible. And then I was like, no, I don't want to do that again. That's too far.
All right, speaking of EVs, we have some email, which we love, of course. This one's from Weldon in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and I wanted to put it at the top of the show because a lot of our listeners are in his situation. He writes us an email and says, I want to buy an EV, but these stories about $22,000 repairs to Tesla batteries scare the daylights out of him, scare the hell out of him, give him the willies. So can you discuss it on your show? Regards from Winnipeg. Love the show, Weldon. Thank you, Weldon, for the email. And we're more than happy to talk about this. It's been 3 years since I was buying an EV, roughly. I went kind of through the same thing. You probably didn't because you were buying a new Tesla under warranty. You probably didn't worry about it as much. But I probably put 2 months of full-time research into EVs. Nobody else can afford to do that but me. But I did, and I eventually felt confident about it. But yeah, you hear a story like that, and because EVs are different, right? We tend to worry about things like that, even though an engine can go. Like I had a friend who had an engine go in a luxury car, cost him multi-thousands of dollars 2 years in. So I don't want that to happen in my gas car or my EV. Like, where do you start discussing things like that when people ask you about that, Brian?
Yeah, well, here's my basic take on it. First of all, it's kind of always a bad idea to spend money on vehicles. There's really no way around it. It's always a money pit spending on a vehicle, whether it's gas or electric. They tend to really be expensive, even aside from all these repairs that we're talking about. Just, the insurance, for instance, there's no way to get around it. Having a vehicle is expensive, and you don't get most of the money back. But if you're buying new, it's not a huge issue. Just look at what the warranty is. So most EVs have quite a decent warranty on the battery. So hopefully you're not going to have to pay for it. But yeah, I've heard that too. When you tell people they've got an electric car, that's one of the first things they think about is like, oh, what if you have to replace the battery? And it's true. It would be very expensive if it's not under warranty. But, it's spending money on a vehicle is always bad, but I do think on an EV is a better choice because fewer things can go wrong. Check out the warranty, see how long the warranty is for the battery. If it's used, you did the research, these Nissan Leafs, they tend to last forever. You do lose some range, they all kind of lose a bit of range, but yeah, that's my take on it. You don't buy a vehicle to save money, you buy a vehicle, it always costs you money. It's just a matter of, how much, basically.
Well, the early Nissan Leafs had some battery problems, but they were kind of from charging in Arizona, where it was, constantly 110 Fahrenheit. And, the heat gave them some problems with their chemistry. Not a problem here in Canada, especially where we are. But losing a little bit of range, it's kind of sad that EVs do that because people like even you are paying attention to stuff like that. But they do tend to lose most of it in the first year. I think it slows down. The curve sort of levels off towards 5 years, and that's where I am with my car. My car is 8 years old and counting, 8.5 years. And, it's great. I'm looking at the Tesla Canadian warranty, and I'm not saying you buy a Tesla, but the story was about a Tesla. So we'll talk about that. It says that Tyler Hoover of Hoover's Garage, this is a story that scared the daylights out of him. In the States, he bought a 2013 used Model S P85. This is a pretty old car now. 4 months out of battery warranty, which would have been in July. Okay, because, my battery warranty is, I bought a used car and it's still the most expensive thing on it was under warranty until a few months ago. And this is ancient. Like it's bound to start, it's beyond what most people own cars already. It's 8.5 years old.
A lot of warranties are really good now.
Yeah. Especially when it comes to batteries and powertrains on electric cars and hybrids. So, the battery would only charge to 50 miles or like 85 kilometers of range. And it was because there was a couple of bad modules. There's 16 modules in that battery pack, and 2 of them were out of balance. So they were causing the car not to charge fully. And Tesla just mindlessly said, oh, well, $22,000. But really you can replace the module, which is 1/8 of the battery. You can replace it with used ones that are salvaged. That's a good use for them. Cheaper that way, but unused new ones, I think were like $1,500 each. Not something you want to do, and not something you would ever want to do in a car. I don't want to spend a dime on my car, and I haven't. I bought a new windshield wiper, but that was it. And, I don't spend money on oil changes, and I haven't even bought tires yet. I'm due because they're getting bald, but, that's what it is. So in Canada, the S and X actually have 8 years of warranty or 240,000 kilometers, which Brian Stockton is insane. That's 250,000 kilometers under warranty.
That's really good.
That's more than what people would drive in 8 years, whichever comes first. So even if you did a lot of driving, which some people do in electric cars because they have those, rural commutes or whatever, and they're buying the car just for money savings. So, yeah. So they warranty it over to 70% capacity. So the 3 standard range is what you have. That's 8 years or 160,000 kilometers. And the 3 long-range performance and Model Ys are 8 years or 192,000 kilometers, which is fantastic. And if you're going to buy a new or used electric car, those warranties still apply. And that is generally what the warranties are, is 8 years or 160,000. At least, I would say, generally speaking. Now, in the news, we've talked about the Chevy Bolt having battery fires. There is, 16 of them or something?
Yeah, and so they've just restarted production of the modified battery packs that are supposed to be not have the flaws in them. And so Chevy is they've recalled every single Chevy Bolt ever made, and they're just starting to put the new batteries in. But again, it's covered under warranty, and some people are going to be even getting a better battery once they get it replaced. Hopefully they don't burn themselves to the ground first.
Yeah, I mean, it's a rare thing, though, and we'll get to that more on the show later, but it's a rare thing to have to worry about that, and you really shouldn't have. I mean, there's, gas cars have been recalled for fires, too.
Yeah.
So it's not unheard of. And it was the battery supplier. They'll get brand new batteries swapped in all those cars, no matter how old they are, and that's going to cost them a fortune. I'm sure they can repurpose those batteries for other things, but it's kind of sad for EV adoption, because people like our friend in Winnipeg here is going to be turned off by that, and I don't blame him. But EVs are incredibly reliable. Winter, summer, there's very few things to break down on them. I think of my car as the most reliable thing there is. I would buy it just for reliability. I'm not even money savings or pollution savings. I would buy an electric car just for the reliability alone. If I could switch, if you're
out of warranty, there's always a risk, whether it's a gas car or an EV, but I would just far take the risk with an EV, because there's just far fewer things that can go wrong. I mean, I guess the battery pack is a big one if that goes, but your engine can go in a gasoline car. So, I'd take the risk with an EV any day.
I would too. Now, that's hard to impart to people because, like I say, things are new, but it's going to take some time for people to adjust. You'll have to, when people start to see their neighbors, the neighbor effect will have a big effect on people. They'll see old Joe next door. He's very happy with his car. He's had it for a few years now. It's never gone wrong. It started on days when my car didn't start. That will slowly erode the mistrust of EVs and the newness of them. They're not that different. Driving them it's just like driving a really quiet, responsive gas car that, doesn't stink. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, I've heard my friend on Twitter complaining about all the stink at Walmart as people park their diesel trucks and go in shopping for khakis. This is a conservative friend of mine, so he's pro EV now, too. And if you're listening, you know who you are, buddy. Turn it off. Listen to something else. And
of course, here, when it's really hot in the summer, people leave them running. And when it's really cold in the winter, people leave them running.
Terrorists. They're all terrorists. Stop it. Stop leaving your diesel engines running. You can ask us questions about this anytime. We welcome them. We're happy to discuss your nervousness about buying EVs, because we both are EV owners, and we're happy to share our own experiences and those of the community in our town here. You're in Winnipeg. There's probably, like there is here, a Facebook user group for EV drivers, and probably a separate one for Tesla drivers. I would join that and ask the odd question on there so you can get local information of the specific model you're looking at. I'm part of a Nissan Leaf group, and boy, you ask a question on there and they'll have 100 answers, in an hour.
Yeah, people love their electric cars, so they love participating in forums like that.
Exactly, true. They want to spread it around. And sometimes if they have problems, you can hear about them there too, and find out any tweaks and who the good dealers are and who the nasty dealers are. And, in the EV world, on non-Tesla side, there's going to be car dealers that know things and car dealers that don't. So thank you again for your question. We'd like to hear if you contact us at cleanenergyshow@gmail.com. We're on the Twitter. We're on the TikTok at Clean Energy Pod. Yes, we're there. I don't know why, but we're there. Just go find us if you want and follow us. Don't forget to check out our YouTube channel. We have some special features up there, which always do well. And leave us a voicemail at speakpipe.com/cleanenergyshow. Yes, I have some breaking news, Brian. Hot off the press. I can barely touch the paper. China plans to stop building new coal-fired power plants abroad. President Xi Jinping, am I pronouncing that correctly? How's your Chinese?
Sure.
How's your Mandarin? Said at the virtual United Nations General Assembly meeting Tuesday that they will stop doing it. And this is a huge announcement because it came after Xi surprised the world leaders last year at this time by pledging to make China carbon neutral by 2060 after reaching peak emissions by the end of this decade. He has come under pressure to back up that promise with concrete short-term goals ahead of the global climate talks known as COP26 to be held in Glasgow, Scotland in November. And China will step up, he says, support for other developing countries in developing green and low-carbon energy and will not build new coal power plants abroad. And this, the experts are telling me on Twitter, will end all funding for new coal plants worldwide. It is over. The funeral, the body is cold now. Goodbye, coal.
Fantastic. That's amazing.
The Toyota Mirai, the pioneer hydrogen fuel cell vehicle. We believe this represents the start.
So that buzzer means it's time to talk about Toyota, who gets the buzzer a lot. Thank you. Yeah, this story comes to me mostly from Clean Technica. But this has been covered other places. But they've got a nice story on there entitled "Akio Toyota Would Rather Die Than Adapt." And so we complain about Toyota a lot on the show because they were leaders with the Prius over 20 years ago, and they just simply refused to switch to EVs. And now the CEO of Toyota, who is the grandson of the founder of Toyota, has come out even stronger against switching to EVs. He thinks that if they try to switch to EVs in Japan, it will bring down the entire Japanese economy. This is his claim. But of course, I think what he's forgetting is that if they don't transition to EVs, it will also bring down the Japanese economy. So it's just really strange that, Toyota is such a huge player in the automotive world. They don't seem to see the writing on the wall. They just do not want to switch to EVs. I guess maybe they've done the math and they've realized how hard it is, how difficult. So they're trying to push hybrids. And this is going to be probably one of the big discussions in the next couple of years. And this, relates to America as well, with Biden and the, EV tax credit that's still in the works, because that's going to allow for hybrids as well. So I think, the traditional automotive makers, they want to bet on hybrids and possibly even hydrogen, but it's just seems to be a strategy to kind of slow things down. No one wants hybrids. Everyone wants pure EVs. And it's I don't know. I don't know what else to say about it, but Toyota seems to be doubling down on the desire not to switch to EVs.
And it's hurtful because I own a Toyota. I've owned two. I like them. I like the reliability. And yet, even before I did, that was in 2012 when I bought my first Toyota. You'd watch them for 13 years, bringing the Prius along. And you thought, well, the future is almost here. It's kind of here. That's fantastic. I envied that, like people envy sports cars. I really wanted a Prius. And now they're a laughingstock, Brian. And
it's weird because, Japan is really known for innovation. They really, when they came into the North American auto market in the 70s, they completely changed everything. It was all about innovation, and they really showed everybody what to do. But now the Japanese automakers, I don't know, they're almost the worst laggards of them all. Honda also had a story out there where they're going to make 70,000 EVs in 2024, and then something like 500,000. They expect to sell a total of 500,000 in the U.S. by 2030. That's what Honda is saying. So they do not want to switch, and it's discouraging.
Goodbye, Toyota. You've been a good company. You've had a good run. You've made Japan proud. But you're going away, and you're going to rot in the coal dust. And now it's time for Tesla News.
All right, we've got a few stories here. The first one, Tesla starts FSD beta tests in Canada, where we are. So this is exciting. It's still not released to the public, but they have had limited drivers driving the FSD beta in Canada. So I'm excited about that. It means we're closer to getting some beta testers here amongst the normal humans.
I would have bet my shirt against that. And I'm a man who likes to wear shirts, Brian, and I never would have guessed that it would come this quickly. I'm very surprised by that. Aren't you? Because it sounded like it was going to be a while.
Yes, and the request button, so this has been spoken about for a while, that so the FSD beta is still limited to a couple of thousand people in the United States, but Elon has been promising for a really long time now that there would be a request button on the next update to your car, so you could request the FSD beta. It doesn't mean you're going to get it. And they also announced that they're going to use their insurance telemetrics to decide if you're a safe enough driver. They're going to monitor your driving for a week to see if you're a safe enough driver for FSD beta. And then they're going to keep monitoring you as you drive it. And if you're a jackass about it, where you're reading a book while you're driving, Tesla will revoke the FSD beta. So this button, the request button in the U.S. is coming very soon, like within a couple of weeks. This has been kind of confirmed a couple of times now. So it is on the way very soon in the U.S.
So you've paid for full self-driving. You have the package ready to go. You're in Canada. And if you get that notification, they're only going to judge your driving after you push the request button? For 1 week?
That's what it sounds like. You push the button and then they monitor you for a week. No one's totally sure how it's.
And then you drive like a nun. It sounds like. You know?
Yeah.
That'll be interesting to see you drive nicely.
But I think the more important thing is the way they're going to monitor you after you get it.
Yeah.
Because they have now
hands on the wheel.
Started to activate the cabin camera in the Teslas, so they can now monitor you for attentiveness, so the camera can tell if you're not looking at the road. So they'll have a really good idea of who is abusing it, I think, and they can just yank it.
If it was me, I think that I would pretend to be drinking beer. I wouldn't actually drink beer. I would just have a...
Yeah, that would be funny. Yeah,
to see if they pick up on that. See if anyone picks up on that. But good luck to you, because you're going to do that, right? I mean, God, we need the research for the show.
Yeah. I mean, who knows who's going to get it first here in Canada, but I would love it if it was me.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to our snowy, decrepit winter conditions being tested. It's not that it hasn't been done before, but most of the stuff has been in California. But I remember somebody took it out to, it's all burning now, but Lake Tahoe, literally everything good in California is burning. But they took it out to Lake Tahoe, where there was snow, because it's a mountainous area, and tested and did some interesting things, and fell short in other ways. But yeah, that's a big question we Canadians have. For those of you who live in a climate that never has anything weird happen, what happens if it snows? You can't see the lines on the street, and you can't divide it, and it's slippery. These are the questions we have when robo-taxis start taking over the world. How soon will they come here? So can't wait, Brian. Can't wait. What else is happening?
So Tesla, there was a big kerfuffle about the solar roof. So Tesla has a product where it's solar panels built into roof tiles. This is kind of an expensive premium roof product, but it gives you a gorgeous roof that generates electricity. But it has been one of the trickier things for Tesla to execute. They're still kind of losing money on their solar division.
Yeah.
And the rollout of the solar roof has been kind of troubled. They haven't been able to roll it out as fast as they want. And at a certain point several months ago, they decided they really got to raise the price for these solar roofs because they were, they're just more expensive than they were hoping to be. So, but they took a weird step. People who had already signed contracts, and they tried to go back to these people and raise it, 20%, 30%, 50%, sometimes even more, based on the complexity of the roof, based on their new models for pricing. But they were already signed contracts, so this was inevitably going to go to a lawsuit.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it did become a lawsuit, kind of a class action lawsuit. The people who Tesla tried to raise the price on their signed contracts, they got together. And so this is kind of expected, I think, what was going to happen. So Tesla finally caved, and these signed contracts, they're going to honor them. But it's just weird that they tried to do that in the first place. Not a great look for them, but yeah, that seems to be resolved now. But going forward, if you're in the U.S., you get a quote for solar roof, it's going to be a lot higher than the prices used to be.
Referral program gone. How do you feel? You benefited from that. A listener to our show signed up and
yes, I want to say thanks again to the listener who used my referral code. Their car has not been delivered yet, so I don't actually have the free Supercharger miles yet.
That was a long time ago.
So I think the car's got to be delivered first. So I got in under the wire before they, because the order was a while ago. So I'm still going to get the free Supercharger miles. So thanks so much to that listener of the show. That's fantastic. Speculation that it will come back in some form. But Tesla, obviously, they don't really have a demand problem right now. So they don't really need to be offering any extra perks. The only product that still gets a Tesla referral is the solar roof that we were just talking about. So they still want customers for that. But yeah, the rumor is they're going to revamp this referral program in some way and perhaps in a month or two bring out another way of doing it.
When they get all these factories open and start spitting out cars everywhere around the world, you'd think maybe they'd bring it back. Speaking of which, they got a new facility in Beijing opening up.
This is a delivery center. So, of course, Tesla has a pretty huge presence in China, but they opened a 120,000 square foot delivery center in Beijing. And there's pictures of it online if you want to have a look. It's just a massive, massive delivery center where people go to pick up their cars when they've ordered them. It's just a really huge and impressive building, just part of their massive expansion around the world.
And finally, Tesla, Elon has hinted that a new Gigafactory, Tesla Gigafactory, is coming, denies it's in Russia. Do you have any India? What are you thinking?
India seems likely. I don't have a huge, so there were rumors about Russia as the next location, and Elon on Twitter just said, we haven't decided yet. So he didn't rule out Russia, but that would seem like a slightly weird choice. But the more countries that are in the running, there's lots of countries that would like a Tesla factory. So if it's in their benefit, like maybe they have no intention of going to Russia, but he didn't rule it out because it's to their benefit that people think, they might go to Russia, then maybe India will offer a bigger subsidy or whatever. But I suspect they won't announce the next Gigafactory until after, the Texas and Berlin ones are kind of up and running.
So in EV news, the Chevy Bolt is flaming hot again. Brian, what do you have to tell us about that?
Yeah, there was just a further direction from General Motors. Their Chevy Bolts do occasionally catch fire. So the new directive to Chevy Bolt owners is do not park within 50 feet of other cars. They're worried about starting other people's cars on fire. So again, this is a very, very, very small risk, and it's still 1/10 the risk of a gasoline car catching on fire. But, this has been in the news a lot, so people are getting scared. There's been other parking lots that have put up notices that don't park your Chevy Bolt here because we're worried it's going to catch us all on fire. So, it was just a bit odd for General Motors to have to issue that warning. Keep your car away 50 feet away from other cars.
When you follow a fire truck, it'll have a sign that says, keep back 50 feet.
Yeah, right.
They'll have to put those on bolts.
Get a bumper sticker for...
Yeah.
We should get those printed up and then just as a courtesy, put them on all the Chevy Bolts around town.
With the Clean Energy Soul logo is a little bit of advertising. So
yeah,
order yours now. It's kind of sad, of course. However... the wife and I were speaking the other day about, what are we going to get for a car when the lease is months away. And I thought, maybe there'll be a lot of Chevy Bolts around because some people are returning them and don't want them anymore. and Chevy's supposedly buying a few people out. We're talking refurbished models, a bad reputation. Maybe that's something I could get in on. We'll see.
No, I think that's actually an excellent idea because they've been around for 3 or 4 years now. So there's a decent supply of used ones, and it's a decent ranged vehicle. It's not bad.
And when
at
you
all.
buy a used one, you'll have a new battery. You know the battery was replaced in 2021, right?
It's true because they're replacing all of them. So that's
But that's not going to fully
I think
affect their market value. If it's a 2018 or something, they'll think you can tell people that it has a new battery, but really that's a sweet deal. Don't, if you have a Chevy Bolt, you'll be waiting on it. Don't park it in your garage. Don't park it near the house where it can do any harm. You don't want anybody to die from this. No one has died from this. And I know it's scary, but there's, I don't know how many there are, 100,000 of them on the road or something. There's only been
more than that.
There's been 17 fires. It's unfortunate, but they've changed the software in the car so that it's less likely to happen. The way that it'll charge slower and stuff like that.
And just to give you an example of, how this is really much more of a problem for gasoline cars, there's a YouTube channel where they show dash cam footage from Teslas. And there was a really good one this week where there was a gasoline-powered BMW SUV going down the freeway, and there was a fire underneath the car, and the driver clearly couldn't tell. And somebody in a Tesla chased them down and recorded all this on the dash cam on the Tesla, got up to them and was able to yell at them and say, "Hey, your car is on fire." And they were in time, just barely in time, able to pull it over to the side, get out of the car, and then the thing burst into flames.
Would you believe I have a clip from that? Yeah, there we go.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Something like that. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but it was something like that. Yeah, that's. I have not seen that clip. I've only heard about it. I'll have to watch it. I didn't know it was that entertaining in the nick of time. I like my drama on the cliff's edge, so that's pretty exciting.
It's not bad.
Still to come at the show, the lightning round where we skim through the latest headlines.
The advance continues.
This is the March Forward, where we talk about how the world is achieving the dreams that we've had as children. UK, the Netherlands are calling on the United States, China, and other countries to ban gas cars by 2035 at the latest. And it says, we, the governments of the UK and the Netherlands, support the European Commission's proposals being agreed upon by the member states of the European Parliament, and ahead of COP26, call on the US, the EU, and China, and other major markets, Canada, to join forces in committing to 100% of new cars and vans being zero emission by 2035 at the latest. The more countries that make this commitment, the faster investment will be to shift to EVs, Toyota, and the faster their costs will come down. You idiots in Japan, Honda, too. You're doing stupid things, too. We could have a whole segment on how stupid the Japanese auto industry is being about the EV transition. Come on, people. So Fiat, Jaguar, Land Rover, Ford Europe, and VW Europe have all recently committed to selling 100% zero-emission vehicles by 2030 in the area of 2030 to 2035. And we call upon other manufacturers to do this, too, ahead of the conference. Announce it in November at the COP conference. China has, gotten rid of coal investment around the world, which I, Brian Stockton, honestly, cynically did not think was going to happen. I'm actually really touched by that. It's very cool that they're actually doing, because China, we have to do whatever China does. China's big. China's no one bigger than China. And if we always complain here in Canada, why should we reduce our oil emissions if China's burning coal and building new coal plants? Well, they still got a couple being built in China, but really, the investment is dead and has been dead for a long time. Another piece here. London Mayor commits to all-electric buses moving forward, 100% zero emissions by 2034 at the latest. London Mayor Sadiq Khan announced that all new buses ordered by Transport for London TfL will be electric moving forward. The new policy falls in line with the UK's UK Capital's previously set goal of making its entire bus fleet electric by 2037. Alongside the announcement, CAN announced a advanced timeline to see fully electric bus fleet by 2034, and perhaps even sooner. So yeah, buses are there. The cost of ownership for buses is now below what a diesel bus is. And I can't wait to get on one. It's the lightning round! My favorite part of the show because it comes to an end soon. This pain that is our show. I'm kidding. I love the show. There's nothing better. In fact, Brian, I've theorized that our show has slowly crept to be longer and longer over the pandemic because I'm lonely. I just need somebody to talk to every week. So I kept making it more bloated. That's subconsciously. It's just a theory that came up the other day. So anyway, according to CNN, fearing battery fires after recalls, people are selling their Chevy Bolts back to GM. So I mentioned that earlier. You wouldn't do that, would you?
I don't think so.
I don't think so, no. It's like, especially the older it is, the better, sweeter the deal is to keep that Bolt. Because, it'll be like new. Because really, the electric motor doesn't age very well. It would outlast most human beings, these motors. Mm-hmm. They're not like an engine. And there's no transmission. So most of what fades could be the battery. And the battery is brand new and probably better than ever, I would hope. The Cadillac Lyric started selling. It sold out in 19 minutes. Legacy automakers, Brian, are still underestimating EV demand, aren't they?
Well, they're either underestimating it or they just don't want to supply it. I mean, I'm not sure what the reason is, but also, I think, so this is the upcoming electric Cadillac. Pre-orders opened and it, sold out pretty much instantly. But, it sounds like they were only kind of offering a couple of thousand. Like the one thing I read was there was maybe only 1,500. Oh, so that's why it sold out so quickly. And so, are they going to make more? Well, maybe eventually, but, they'll probably be out of business by then.
GM, you get the buzzer. It's a shame because GM, they claim they're all in on EVs. I'm starting to wonder, Brian. I'm starting to wonder about these companies. And maybe I should buy more Tesla stock. We don't give out investing advice on this show. But if we did, buy Tesla. Starlink is coming out of its beta phase next month. And so far, the satellite internet system is providing high-speed internet access to 100,000 customers across 14 countries, including right here in Saskatchewan, Canada. As per Musk's previous comments, Starlink is expected to reach worldwide coverage later this year. It's moving fast.
Yeah, they hadn't launched any satellites for a while, but there was a flight went up last week, another 60 satellites, or maybe only 40 satellites. But these are the new ones that have laser links. So this is kind of version 1.5. Right now, all the existing Starlinks, they have to talk to ground stations to spread the signals. Oh. But now the new ones are going to be laser linked, and eventually they'll all be laser linked. Anyway, it's just kind of all getting kind of better and faster.
Now, you and I had a heated dispute on Twitter recently because there is a prof at the very university you work at who came up with an app to show you what the night sky will look like with all the new satellites going up, the low orbit satellites for Starlink and other companies. And it was basically blanketing the sky. I imagine it's only for a short period of time while the sun is sort of peeking over the horizon at that sort of part of the atmosphere and not on the ground. Not concerned about that, Brian Stockton.
Well, I'm not concerned about it, but, it seems that some astronomers are and some aren't. I don't know what the kind of correct answer is, but presumably if you're an astronomer, you've already figured, like there's already thousands of satellites up around the Earth. So if you're an astronomer, presumably you've already figured out a way to, discount the clutter in the way if you're looking at the stars. So I think a few thousand more isn't going to make much of a difference, but, what do I know?
Brian Stockton, what do you know? Electric truck maker Rivian details membership program for electric trucks, the charging access and their connectivity. The Rivian membership will include unlimited LTE connectivity access as well as unlimited free charging. DC fast charging on what the company calls the Rivian Adventure Network, which is located not just on highways, but places where one adventures in national parks and places like that. And level 2 charging at stations dubbed waypoints, like hotels, I would imagine, and campgrounds and stuff like that. So what do you think? I haven't seen a price on that yet, but it'll be all-inclusive.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea. I mean, Rivian's an expensive vehicle, so these are, their customers can probably afford it. And we should mention, too, that I guess the first Rivian trucks are just coming off the assembly line now. I haven't seen any reviews of them out in the wild, but they're finally hitting production.
Oh, man, we got to be looking for that. Check out YouTube. See who's going to, we know there's people, well-known YouTubers have bought them first in line. So hopefully we can see some people we know on YouTube who will show us around the truck and see how it is. Very excited.
Yeah, there's been a Motor Trend review online, but that was technically a pre-production truck. So the actual production model should be in the wild soon.
Yeah, it's very exciting when they start rolling that production line because second to Tesla, you have your Rivian right now, as far as I'm concerned. Not to take anything away from the Chinese manufacturers, which we have less access to here in North America right now. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And maybe next week we'll have something, actually. So Chevron was spending $3 billion to reducing carbon in their operations. Then they boosted it, announced that they would boost it to $10 billion. So what happens? JP Morgan took that information and downgraded the stock. You see, Brian, JP Morgan wants greenwashing. They want phony carbon reductions. They don't want real carbon reductions, and they've downgraded the stock. And I hate this, and I hope that all these incumbent idiots lose money and people like us make money. On this big EV transition for being ignorant, for being unethical, and not caring about your children's futures. So the world's longest operating solar thermal facility is retiring most of its capacity. That's the SEGS facility in California's Mojave Desert, and they're retiring 5 of its solar plants. Now, these are the things with a whole bunch of mirrors and a circle around this tower, which holds like liquid oil or something, and they reflect the sun and boil the oil. The hot oil then boils water, turns it into steam, which drives a traditional steam turbine and makes electricity. This is the kind of plant that they had over in Medicine Hat, Alberta, where you'll be driving through at the end of the month. That went out of business. That went bankrupt because, well, for one reason, it's Canada. And we're talking heat here, not photons from the sun, but actual heat that is necessary. And the things would get covered in snow, and you'd have to spend money getting the snow off, and then it wasn't as efficient in the wintertime. So I don't know. Yeah,
it's a cool idea, but it sort of falls into the category we talk about a lot on the show, is that, even, nuclear is a good possible solution to these things. But, solar, wind, and batteries are just so simple and easy and getting cheaper. Traditional solar panels just probably make more sense than these thermal facilities.
And they're still building a couple of them, but I'm guessing they're in hot climates. And I'm also thinking that, solar is beating solar in this case. Like your traditional solar PV combined with storage, cheapest thing out there, and getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. Mm-hmm. And yes, there's good ideas. And yes, my son says nuclear has to be done, and he's wrong. He's wrong. Everyone's wrong on nuclear. I'm sorry. I know a lot of our listeners are like, oh, small modular nuclear. And I think there might actually be a reactor in the next 10 years, maybe not. But I see it as greenwashing, governments using it to just to prolong actual work. So Tesla's autopilot saves more lives. Suspected drunk under the influence driver passed out while driving, and the car was safely stopped. And I believe it was by her husband.
Oh, yeah.
Her husband chased after her. No, her husband reported her to the police passed out on the wheel. He was following her, and the police just drove in front of her and slowed down. And the Tesla autopilot, of course, slowed down with them. And the husband is probably thinking, why didn't I do that? then we wouldn't have had the DUI. But I bet that marriage is a bit on the rocks. Yeah. So, Brian, did you know that 3% of the world's CO2 emissions results from shipping goods across oceans? Of course you did. Or that simple fixes like pumping compressed air beneath the hull and removing debris from propellers, or just moving slower, can greatly reduce 3% of our CO2 emissions. There's little things that the shipping industry can do. And because it's out in the ocean, it's hard to regulate that stuff, right? You can't say, well, all ships, you can only regulate them when they're in the port.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, efficiencies are important.
Lucid shares the EP range for the Lucid Air models. That is 520 miles on the Dream Edition. And that's 837 kilometers to you and me. That's what my Prius gets in the summertime in the city. With a full tank of gas and the rolling resistant tires. It gets less than that now that I put in cheap tires. And
that's a big deal that they got it up, the range that up that
why
high.
A fella, if they weren't an old man, could drive all the way to Calgary on that and not have to stop nonstop. So, yeah. So, Brian, can you guess which country is the only country in the world on course to deliver climate action in alignment with the 1.5 degree Celsius pathway of the Paris Agreement?
I have no idea.
I redacted that in the script. It's actually Gambia.
Gambia.
And I've exposed it by highlighting it with my cursor. Gambia. Of all countries, there's only one, and it's Gambia. We're doomed. So in addition to buses, London's largest taxi firm finally this week is going to go fully electric by 2023. With 4,000 EVs. Have you ridden a taxi in London?
Maybe once, yeah, back in 2012.
So once again, that's our show for this week. Thanks for your time. We appreciate everyone who listens to our show, and we're desperate for feedback, so get a hold of us. Follow us on Twitter. Consider rating and reviewing our show on iTunes or wherever you get your iPod or podcasts, and we'll eventually read it here on the show. So, Brian, I'll see you next week.
See you next week.